The Black Cauldron was an animated Disney film that came out in 1985 and was loosely based off the first two books in the Chronicles of Bride Dane, which was written by Lord Alexander. It was also among the darkest animated Disney films ever created, next to The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Brave Little Toaster, and was the very first animated Disney film to get a PG rating. Now, before I get into what I liked and hated about this film, I would like to give out a brief summary on this film. The film starts off with a young boy named Taran who is the assistant pig keeper to Dalbin, the enchanter. Taran was busy taking care of the pig named Henwin, who happens to possess the power to predict the future, when suddenly Henwin gets a vision about the Horn King finding out about the dreaded Black Cauldron, and Dalbin tells Taran that he must keep Henwin safe from the Horn King so that the Horn King will never discover where the Black Cauldron is located at. During the journey, Taran meets several other characters who ended up assisting him on his journey, which were Princess Eloise, Gurgi, and Flindor Flimflam, and they all try to get to the Black Cauldron first before the Horn King gets his hands on it. This movie was very different from the other animated Disney films that came out during that time because not only was it darker, but the storytelling was a bit more complex. For one thing, what I really enjoyed about the plot of this movie was the fact that we have a villain who wants to find an artifact that has a power to bring destruction to the world if it drops into the wrong hands. Now, there has been many animated Disney films where the villain is usually shown as being a bit threatening, but usually has a touch of humor into their personalities, which makes them less threatening at times. But the Horn King is definitely one villain who doesn't have a human streak in him, and therefore he is easily one of the most frightening and intense villains I have ever seen come out of a Disney film. Well, since Judge Doom anyway. I really love the fact that this movie was much darker than any other Disney animated film I had seen from this era, as it made this movie unique in its own way, and the fact that the movie has a king who is a tyrant and threatens to destroy the kingdom really raised the stakes for all the characters in this film. The characters in this film were great, with my favorite characters being Gurgi, the young creature who wants to be Taran's friend, and Henwin the pig who is able to predict the future. I also love the character arc for Taran, as he wishes to be a hero, and the movie spends time on Taran trying to find the Black Cauldron in order to prevent the Horn King from getting his hands on it. Princess Eloise was a nice addition to the cast, although I wish that more was done with her besides being a supposed love interest for Taran, but I love the fact that she encourages the group to move forward in their goals and is often shown as being cheerful and helpful. The only problem I have with this film was that we barely know each character's background story. For instance, I would like to know how Taran became an assistant pig keeper to Dalbin, and what happened to his parents, unless Dalbin was his father. I also would like to know that if Eloise is a princess, then what happened to her father? Did her father know anything about the Horn King's takeover of the kingdom? And where was he when Eloise was kidnapped by the Horn King? Now, I do understand that some of the questions I'm asking about might not be essential to the story, Taran's parents, but I would like to know about where these characters are coming from and how the Horn King became king in the first place. And now, it was mentioned in the film about how there was a king before the Horn King, and that the Horn King forced the other king out, but other than that, we don't really hear much about the other king, and what the kingdom was like before the Horn King took over. I also would have loved to see more of Henwin, the cute little pig who has the power to see the future, as she is the character who could really turn the plot around, since the Horn King was after her to find the Black Cauldron. It would have been really interesting to see Taran and his friends use Henwin to find the Black Cauldron, so they could get to it first before the Horn King, as Henwin would have been used in a more effective way in the movie. The Black Cauldron is rated PG for some scary images, which I think is a really appropriate rating for this movie. There are many scary images in this film, most notably the appearance of the Horn King himself, as he looks like a frightening skeleton. No, not that skeleton. Not to mention the idea about an undead army coming to attack the land sounds worse than it looks. Overall, I give the Black Cauldron an 8 out of 10. The animation was fantastic, and the story had a very interesting villain who had a very intriguing goal. But the film lacked background stories for each character, and I often found myself trying to figure out where these characters were coming from. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie and you don't want any spoilers, then please feel free to skip over this section. But if you have seen this film and you just want to know my opinions on these scenes, then keep watching. Near the end of the movie where Gurgi ends up sacrificing himself by jumping to the Black Cauldron in order to prevent the Horn King's undead army from attacking the land, this was a situation that was very complicated for me. For one thing, I kind of wished for Taran to be the one who jumped into the Black Cauldron, because it would have completed his character arc about trying to be a great hero. Not to mention this was pretty much Taran's story rather than Gurgi's story. But then I started thinking a bit more on the situation, as Tehran was the one who defeated the Horn King, who was the big bad of this movie, and Gurgi was the one who stopped the Horn King's army. So in a way, having both Tehran and Gurgi defeat the villains near the end of the film actually wrapped up both of their character arcs as being heroes. Tehran wanted to be a hero at the beginning of the movie, and he gets that by defeating the Horn King, while Gurgi has a character arc where he's shown as being a coward, but then becomes courageous toward the end when he sacrifices his life to stop the army. Therefore, making my point about who should have been the hero of this film reasonable enough to understand. So what do you think? Do you think that Tehran should have been the one who jumped into the cauldron, or do you think that it was fine for Gurgi to jump into the cauldron? Well, that's my movie review on the Black Cauldron, and be sure to check out my other videos. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you later.